All right, Nick Florence getting you ready for Utah and Baylor as we get you what should be a really fun game between these two teams. Utah has just been on a roll after that BYU loss. Nick, how you doing?
Hey, Nick.
I'm doing great. Glad to have you guys in Waco on Saturday.
Well, you know what? It's interesting how my buddy's a big Utah fan, and he's saying I can never get my wife to go with me on road trips, but for some reason she was all about the trip to Waco, and everybody wants to go to the farm, everybody wants to see the silo. So I think there's a lot of Utah fans who'll be like, all right, fine, now I get to make a trip, just if it means I have to spend a few hours at a place I really don't want to be at.
Yeah, no, it's fun that you say that, and I think what people discover, obviously, when they get here, yes, it's fun to see the silos if you're a big Chip and Joe fixer-upper fan. But I mean, Waco's just a gem, quite honestly. It's a college town, but it's also a little bigger than a college town. It's nestled between Austin and Dallas on I-35, and it's just a great place. And then obviously McLean, just right there on the Brazos River. It's an incredible football environment.
So, give me the best indicator. Is this the team that just beat UCF 30-3, or is this the team that lost back-to-back games to TCU and Cincinnati? Because I can't figure out who this Baylor team is.
Well, that makes two of us then. I hope it's the team that played UCF a few weeks ago. It's crazy when you think about this year and the expectations that the guys had, within the locker room, not just externally. But the way they finished 2024, there was a lot of high hopes. And the reality is it's a really talented team. And we really haven't played complementary football all year. And protecting the ball has been a challenge for us. And then defensively, it's just like, man, there's moments in the game where you look good, and there's a lot of moments you don't. And then all of a sudden, against UCF, you just kind of put it all together. Against a team that was rather hot at the moment, played Cincinnati real close, and then walloped West Virginia, and so I hope it's the team that played 2 weeks ago at McLean Stadium, and we're in for a real treat Saturday night if so.
So I got to know Dave Aranda a little bit when he was at Utah State as the defensive coordinator up there, and obviously great defensive mind. So it's a little surprising that the defense hasn't been up to Dave Aranda's standards. Why would you? Is there a thing you can point to as to why they may have struggled on that side of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think, in Dave's words, I think a lot of it comes down to execution. I think they're talking about the right things, and the players aren't executing. And, it seemed like maybe they changed some things up going into that UCF game. I think we all understand as individuals that have watched a lot of football, players that think play slow, players that react play fast. And so I think as coaches, it's their job to how do you get your players to stop thinking and start reacting. And so something switched that week against UCF, and the defense was flying around. And when you fly around and you hustle, there's two things that really happen. One, you create turnovers, and then two, you get holding penalties called against you or against the offensive line, against the defensive line. And so both those things showed up against UCF. If we're going to be successful against the Utes on Saturday night, our defense has got to be flying around. They can't be thinking. They've got to be reacting and creating turnovers and getting some holding penalties against probably the stoutest running game in the Big 12 and one of the best in the nation.
Just give me your overall thoughts on Sawyer Robertson's performance to this point. How reliable, how good, how much of a leader, or the lack thereof. Just kind of give me your overall thoughts on Sawyer.
Yeah, man, I'm real high on Sawyer. First and foremost, just a great individual, great kid, great character. Faith is in the right place. It's not about him. He wants to make those around him better. And I think you've kind of seen some ups and downs this year. And when he is playing free and just, hey, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do my best to get the ball where it needs to go on time, and not try to do too much, he's really, really good. I think in his struggles this year, I think he's put the weight of the team on his shoulders. And the reality is football's a team game, and you're not meant to carry that weight by yourself for 60 minutes. And so I'm really hoping that UCF game, he seemed to just let it fly and let his eyes feed what he needs to do with his arm and the trajectory of that ball. But when he goes out, he's playing free and is not putting the weight of the team on his shoulders. Man, he's a special player, and his numbers have shown that at times. And so, incredible leader, truly cares about the success of his teammates more than the success of his own stats. But I think sometimes, he wants to do so well, he can be his own worst enemy.
Is there been a turning of the page, so to speak, at running back? Caden Knighton had the really good game against Central Florida, the freshman. Is he starting to emerge and maybe take a little bit more ownership role on that team?
Yeah, Bryson, obviously, I mean, he's a pounder of a running back and has been beat up at different times. I think in a perfect world, he's still taking the heavy share. But, man, has it been fun to watch Caden Knighton this year and really watch him grow up in front of us over the last 9 games. And you could tell early on he's dynamic and he's got speed. And but what he has learned through some unfortunate plays at times is, hey, this isn't high school football anymore. You're not the fastest one on the field all the time. And so it's been neat as he's learned, and those young guys want to make cuts and bounce it and go backwards and outrun guys. The college game is different than that. And so making your cuts, but making them moving vertically and not horizontally. And he really showed out against UCF and did that at a high level. And so I love, he's a dynamic player, and it's been fun watching him grow up. And that's part of the fun of the game, is you watch these guys and a true freshman do what he's done. It'll be interesting to see how it shapes up on Saturday.
How good has the home field advantage been this year for Baylor?
Say that again.
How good has the home field advantage been for Baylor this year? Just playing in that stadium, playing in front of that crowd, do they seem to rise more to the occasion, or do you feel like it hasn't mattered much?
That's an interesting question. There's times where it's like, yes, there's a level of routine and comfortableness at home. And again, we played our best game last week against UCF, but then there's times at home where we make a lot of mistakes. I think that just goes back to, hey, are we going to be the team that showed up against Cincinnati or TCU or Arizona State, or are we going to come out and dominate? McLean Stadium, when it is rocking, is a tough place to play. And so we've also had a lot of early games at McLean. And so I think our team is excited. I think our fan base is really excited about a 6 p.m. kick at night at McLean Stadium. We're hosting you guys as the 13th ranked team in the CFP. I think it's going to be a tough environment. I never played at McLean Stadium. When I played here, it was at Floyd Casey, but man, when you're on the sideline and the place is rocking, it's intimidating. And it's an incredible football environment.
So when you look at this Utah team, what do you expect to see from the Utes coming into this game, and what is Baylor planning on seeing in this game?
Yeah, I mean, top to bottom, the Utes they're stout. At the end of the day, and obviously, the Texas Tech game, throw that out. They played BYU really close. But they're big boys, man, and they're going to ground and pound it on you. 267 yards of offense on the ground. At the end of the day, over 4 quarters, that wears on you. And so the defense has a really tall task, and where we've struggled defensively this year is stopping a running quarterback, which the Utes obviously key on that really, really well as a part of their run game strength. And then I think on the flip side, man, the defense has been stout. The passing yards given up in a game are extremely low. I think leading the Big 12, if I've got my stat right, and which has been the strength of our team. And so it's an interesting chess match for Baylor. We've got to be able offensively to break the man coverage, and you break that in one of two ways. Either you break it through the air and get some big plays, but if you can pop a run and get through the front seven, you're running for a long time, and so you got to do something to get the defense to loosen up. And so that's the big challenge offensively. And then as going back to the run game, defensively, you got to stop the run and you got to slow the quarterback down. And it comes down to those keys on both sides of the ball.
So, Nick, I call the color for BYU. So I'm headed out to Cincinnati in 2 weeks. And I put out a tweet that said, for every sack that Utah and BYU put up this weekend, I pledge to eat as many cheese coney three-way Skyline chili dogs as there are sacks. A little bit worried about this. Talk about the Baylor front, their ability to protect Sawyer, because, as you know, it's a really good Utah pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a challenge. There's times I think, the biggest thing, and this is what I always say to folks, like you're referencing sacks, but you don't even have to get sacks to rattle a quarterback, right? Like if you can get him to speed the clock up, then you've done your job. Obviously, a sack is what you want from a defensive standpoint, but that's my biggest concern for the Bears offense is are they going to be able to protect enough to where Sawyer doesn't have to speed the clock up? If he's having to make throws a half a second to a second before he wants to make it, then the Utah front's done their job. And at times that's been some of our kryptonite, and that game speeds up for the quarterback. And then you think there's always a rush. And so I think that's what Utah does really, really well. And ultimately they end up getting quite a few sacks out of it. But the O-line has a tall task in front of them this week.
When you get some of the your old teammates together, do you remind RJ3 that you broke his single season record?
Not at all. It's kind of like guys that he's got the one up in everything, right? Like he's got the trophy. Yeah. So like there's no need.
It's like, well, I got this thing called a Heisman. Yeah.
A Heisman. I did get to help for a half of football, help him win that in 2011. But, it was actually fun. We're all over the place. We've got families and work and we're all scattered. But the Auburn game this year, when we opened the season, Griff was calling that game for Fox. And then Bryce Petty was being honored on the field that night. And then Seth Russell, who was right after Bryce, does some tailgate pregame stuff for us. And so we were all four in the same room for the first time in, 12, 15 years.
That's awesome.
Which was really cool.
Well, I'm going back and looking at your numbers. In that year where you had 4,300 yards passing, you also had nearly 600 yards rushing.
Look at you, Nick. And
10 touchdowns on the ground. And Utah's got Devin Dampier, who we've been talking a lot about. He tries to stay healthy, but and he wants to run the football. He's a dynamic runner. But where do you draw that line between being aggressive offensively, but also, trying to be smart and not getting your guy hurt? How did you walk that line as a quarterback?
Well, one, I was not near as athletically gifted as Dampier or RG3. And so I knew my limitations. And for me, it's really about getting what you can get. And then you've got to avoid the direct hit. Like, to stay healthy, if you consistently are getting directly hit, that's where guys get hurt. And relaxing. And again, hey, if I can fall this way, he just gets my shoulder and momentum rather than squaring me up. But, down in distance and where you are at the game and what's on the line also comes into play. And so I think, as with all great competitors, you're willing to throw your body on the line at the right time when it matters in a game. And so obviously he's a talented player. And but as they say, Scott Droog has this phrase, and now I'm going to blank it as we're on air, but the best players are the ones that are available, but there's a phrase to it, and now I'm forgetting it. So, but you got to be available to be great, and so that's the key to all this as quarterbacks.
How does Mr. Morris treat you in the booth? Is he a good one to work with?
Dude, he's a pro. I mean, let's be honest. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. I'm 9 games in. I'm getting more comfortable as each game goes along, but he makes it so easy. He's such a pro, and it's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun. I never thought I'd ever be doing something like this, and so it's a neat experience.
When you look across the state and you see Texas Tech throwing money around and Texas A&M always will throw money around, how's Baylor competing and what's the vibe there in Waco on trying to maybe not keep up, but at least stay in the same zip code as some of these schools?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways we're doing well, and in a lot of ways it's challenging, like it is for the vast majority of programs. Tech's in a unique situation, given Cody Campbell and kind of where things were and what they were able to get done before July 1 this last year. A&M and Texas and those guys are always gonna have resources. I think at the end of the day, it comes back to, hey, we're competing at a high level. I really do believe that in terms of the NIL game, but we also can't lose who we are. And we've won before. And I won't point fingers, but there's always been paying of players.
Yeah.
I think we at smaller schools will always say that about the bigger schools. But we won before, and so it's about developing guys. It's about getting the most out of your players. And so can we continue to do that at a high level? I think we can. I think Baylor has a lot to offer. Where we're located geographically, the facilities are second to none. And then the institution caring about you first and foremost as a person. It's special. It was transformational for me and so many of my teammates, and it will continue to do that for so many student athletes moving forward.
Well, Nick, we appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us. Have a great call, and look forward to catching up with you again down the line.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
You got it. Nick Florence, color analyst, Baylor Bears.